Outer Orange.
Hello and welcome back. Yes, another Granblue deck profile. If you clicked on this, you probably would assume that that is what I'll be talking about. Yes, I just came back from BRL commentating and I am here doing a profile for God knows what reason. But here we are today. Welcome back. Outer Orange here. Let's go ahead and discuss some Granblue. I will give you kind of a disclaimer here. This is kind of a skeleton list before anything else. I haven't spent that much time on this particular deck because I personally think that currently it is not that great in comparison to current best decks in the V premium format. So because of that, I don't want to put time into a deck that I won't be taking to anything, but that doesn't mean it's a bad deck. It doesn't mean it's not a good deck to start with. As a Granblue player or someone getting into Granblue, someone that doesn't know how Granblue works, this is one of the best decks to start with. It has such interesting retire mechanics, milling mechanics, and everything. It's one of the best decks to start with. That's why I'm giving you kind of a skeleton list, and I will be talking about some text and some options, some things that you could throw in here. So by all means, you could start here and work your way up and try to maybe find some different things, and maybe as support comes in the future, we may actually see this deck just start showing a little bit more representation. It overall is a very like in the middle kind of type of deck. It's not best deck, but it's by no means worst deck either. So let's go ahead and talk about good old Pinot Noir today. All right, hello guys. So I am back here. Is kind of, you know, here's Pinot Noirs. We're gonna go ahead and talk about Pinot Noir. Before that, of course, we gotta talk about deck boxes, and of course I brought this one. I actually have this in my Dragon Empire I don't know how to say her name, but you know, the girl, the waifu. I recently got this box with Miri and stuff like that, so I actually threw in my Pinot Noir deck in here as I'm actually running out of deck boxes. Sleeves are still MLB because surprise, surprise, all my Granblue cards that I use are in MLB sleeves. So let's go ahead and talk about the profile here. I will be kind of discussing the grade 3s, the 2s, the 1s, the 0s, some things you can do with this deck, and some combos. I'm gonna go ahead and talk about some techs right now. The first tech being the King Tentacle. I believe that's his full name. I'll have him somewhere kind of around here. I actually don't have a copy of this card. I don't know how because I have legitimately had this card at some point. I just can't find my copy, but so I'm just gonna show it on screen for you instead. So King Tentacle is actually a very fun card. This deck mills a crap ton, and seeing King Tentacle is very easy nowadays. And also King Tentacle also works with the new Sea Strolling Banshee, since you can selectively mill King Tentacle out. There's also been the Ghosty. It's another secondary replacement, but King Tentacle gets bigger as it becomes a 22k attacker for the turn, and you can kind of just start rushing your opponent if you choose to. So I'm just gonna tell you right now, since this is my only grade 3, that King Tentacle is not a bad option here. There is a new promo coming. I don't know if it's coming to America. I mean, I don't know if it's coming to English. There's a promo. I'm gonna have it on the screen as well. I'll pretty much give you the skill. It says when it attacks, you can give it 5k and mill 2 cards, and then also at the end of the battle, and also if it gets retired by a card effect, you can bind it and then call another copy of itself out from drops into the board with a cost of a Soul Blast. So just that card also works brilliantly in here, but sadly we don't have that card yet. So those are kind of your options. Keep in mind this deck Soul Blast quite a bit, so you don't want to be cautious with Soul, as there is very limited resources for Granblue to Soul Charge in V Premium, so be cautious of that. This deck does over Soul a little bit, but you can utilize some of these little techs here and there just to kind of push your opponent a little bit further. I'm keeping away from it for now, but it is something that I would consider putting into my deck, something I'll consider testing out, something I probably will be testing out, something that I've tested out in the past. The card that I talked about, the promo, the card's name is Francis, and yes, I've tested the deck even on stream. Actually I tested it, and I even have videos of using Tabletop Simulator with the Francis in the deck, so you guys can check that out. Let's go ahead and start with Pinot Noir. Pinot Noir says during your turn, all your front row units get 5k power for every 3 triggers in your deck, and it could be any trigger units, it could be heal triggers, whatever. As long as it's a trigger, you will get the skill. And then that's really awesome, as it's kind of like a little mini front. So you know, if you have 3 triggers, you get 5k. If you have 6 triggers, you get 10k. If you have 9 triggers, you get 15k, and so on and so forth. You would just keep stacking. So this does help a lot, as you can start this on your first grade 3 ride. There's no restriction to this card, so starting on the first grade 3 ride, you can start pushing your opponent. Another skill it has is once per turn, when your Pirate Belle Pinot Blanc is placed on the rearguard circle during your turn, you can Soul Blast, discard 2 cards on top of your deck, essentially milling 2, and activate all trigger effects of the discard card. So essentially this card has a quadruple drive pretty much every single turn. You will usually not miss this. The only issue is, you know, if you don't have Soul, but you won't miss this if you discard 2 and they happen to be crits. You can stack that anywhere you want. You can put anywhere on your units, and that gets the power because it does get the trigger effects. including the 10k. So you get the 10k and you get the crit, so you get to put it everywhere. You get 2 of them, that's 2 more crits on top of the fact that you haven't even drove check yet. So this gets very, very scary as that you start getting closer and closer to like your higher triggers, higher stuff, because you have the front going on. Overall, a very nice card. Unfortunately, it is restricted to this engine of having Pinot Blanc and Pinot Noir, so that's kind of where the downside of the card gets, is that you can't kind of throw this into other decks. You kind of have to be very careful of how you use this card because it is kind of restricted. Same going with the grade 2 that we'll be seeing, which is Pinot Blanc. But here is Pinot Blanc looking wonderful and adorable, and her cute little vampireness. I think she's a vampire. She's looking cute. Yep, she's a vampire. Just read it. But anyway, so this is Pinot Blanc. We just discussed about Pinot Blanc in the card. So with her skill says, when your Pinot Noir on Vanguard attacks, you can counterblast, retire a rear guard, draw a card, and call this unit to the front row. Also, it has a secondary skill. It says this unit cannot be attacked. This unit gets shield plus 5k for every 3 triggered units in your drop. So 2 things that's good about this card. If you were to intercept with it, it's pretty high actually, and it's pretty high. Your opponent can't attack it, so the only way they can get rid of it is by pretty much retiring it, binding it, doing whatever. It can be chosen, but it can't be attacked, which is actually just really nice, as this will always stay on the board, which means you have a rear guard just present all the time, on top of the fact that it will be of use to you as an interceptor. If you want to intercept with it, you can, as it'll just gain 5k more. If it's in your hand, it'll be a good shield value, and you want to see it in your drop anyway, so you might as well guard with it. And it's a pretty high guard, so it's actually not terrible. If you're at 20 with this, like if you have 15, if you have 9 triggers in your drop, this instantly becomes a 20k, and so on and so forth. It's a good card. Its first skill lets you pretty much multi-attack. So if you were to have something attacking that already attacked, you can then attack with your Pinot. Pretty much the way you do it is, doesn't matter, you attack with this, you know, whatever, you have your little front, etc. And then when this attacks, you activate the skill to then call one from drop and everything. So then when this attacks, you can also stack whatever triggers that you get onto that new unit that you just put out, and it's just really awesome. You also draw a card on top of that, which is just really cool. So you pretty much replenish your hand size relatively quickly, and that's essentially what you'll be doing with both of these cards. You'll be doing that skill pretty much every single turn. And that's what this is where Francis comes really well, as this card forces you to retire something, and Francis, the promo I've been talking about, wants to be retired to then bring it back. So you can swing, with the Francis thing, you can swing, and then you can swing, and then on this one you can retire. This is Francis, you can retire Francis, and then on that skill you can also use this skill and pretty much recall a Francis and recall a Pinot Blanc, enabling a 5 attacks in a 4 attack deck, because this deck is pretty much 4 attacks, but you can enable 5 attacks with the promo. If we ever see it, that'll be really cool and awesome, and you never know. Another thing that's really cool with the King of Tentacles, since you are milling cards during battle phase, you have a shot at actually calling out the King Tentacle that I discussed through just straight discard. So that just straight milling through discard, all that stuff. So that's where the King Tentacle also comes into play. If you don't want to see it early, you can also use it late game. It's just really fun to see that card being utilized. Columbard, I put Columbard at 2. This deck does use a lot of resources relatively fast, and you don't have the best ways to kind of replenish resources as quickly, especially on the soul charging side. We may get a unit in the future that might soul charge, because Beatrice has soul blast, and this soul blast, and other cards soul blast. We have been getting a lot of soul blasty cards, so it's possible we may get a soul charger. I really doubt it, and I doubt it'll be anytime soon, because we have a lot of cards that you really work off well soul. So it may not be for a while, but we may see something. Maybe we might even see something in the Nuko Kaya stuff that can soul charge, that will help kind of fuel this engine a little bit more. But for the time being, we don't. And Counterblast is kind of a problem, but we do have Cutlass to kind of make up for it, and Jesse, all this other stuff. Long story short, I run this at 2. You don't really need to see this. You will be milling a lot. Your main focus is to just mill, see all your stuff, get a big front, attack for big numbers, but you do sometimes may want to get something out of your deck, and that's kind of where this card comes in. You can bump it up. I personally like it at 2, but you can bump it up. We also, of course, have Greedshade. Greedshade is your boy, your homie. This is pretty much your searcher for your perfect guards, your heals, whatever you need. In this deck, you mainly want to pick up maybe potentially your perfect guards, because you don't necessarily want to pick up your crits unless it's early game, because you want to keep your triggers in your drop as much as possible, so that way you have your front. But in case you have like an awkward number like 12 or something, and you know you're not hitting your P, or like say you have 13, you know you're not hitting your triggers anytime soon, you may be able to pick up a trigger and not worry about it. But this deck, this card also lets you mill, also becomes a 14k attacker, and you know on a front it'll get even bigger. So this is overall just a really good card. But of course, the skill of having to mill 2 cards, bring something back to hand, is just a beautiful concept. So we run this card there. I do do run Jesse. Jesse self-retires early on, which is really good. Mainly, he's mainly here as a countercharger. He can just kind of helps the engine. I'm not a big fan of running Jesse in this deck. However, it is nice to replenish that counterblast that you use. So that's primarily where you kind of want to use him. You can easily make this into Columbine and you'll probably be fine. Honestly, you don't really want to run retire cards. You've noticed that I don't run Skull Dragons. I don't run Ghost Ships in this deck. The reason being is once they're off the board, it makes it so much harder to hit this, and it means that you actually have to start retiring other cards, like say your boosters or something like that. And you normally don't want to touch your boosters, as you want every single attack to count in this deck, as all your front row units get a lot of power. So you want to make sure you can kind of hit like a truck as soon as possible. And while yes, Skull Dragon is amazing, but that means you're lowering on your chance of just enabling like better attacks, because you have to retire something else. So maybe you have to retire your grade 2 on the other side, or grade 1, whatever you have, and you don't want to do that. So that's actually why I only run one self-retiring unit in this deck. I don't run the Skull Dragons, don't run the Ghost Ship. I think they ruin the concept of this deck more than they help it. But you know, by all means, feel free to tell me in the comments below how you feel. Now, I do run a lot of grade 1s, and you'll see why here in a sec, but because we don't have to run as many in grade 3s in other, you know, Granblue decks, we have to run Beatrice and Skull Dragons and Night Roses, all this other stuff. We don't have to worry about any of that stuff here. So I have a ton of grade 1s to show you. So let's go ahead and get to our grade 1s. I'm going to go ahead and start with Cutlass here, because for some reason, that's just how I stacked my deck and with my grade 1s. Cutlass is a good unit to just bring out to the board. Countercharger, it helps you mill, so you can maybe hit a mill that you need. Maybe you are at 11 crits in the inner drop zone, or 11 triggers, and you want to get to 12. You use this card, you bind one, call it out, and oh my god, you mill one card, countercharge, and it's a crit, and perfect. Now you have your extra front or whatever you need. So it's not bad. Like I said, this is a free +1 to the board, and sometimes in case you really do need to retire something, this might be the thing to go. But usually you don't want your boosters to go, but just in case. And then that's Cutlass. Next we have for Dalf the Ghosty grade 1 perfect guard. Now you may be asking me, why in the world are you running Dalf the Ghosty in a non-ghosty deck? Well, the thing about this, as we discussed earlier, this is a very trigger focused deck. You want to hit all your crits as much as possible. The more crits you hit, the more chance you have of pretty much just winning the game. You can take a game away so easily by just hitting your triggers, hitting specifically your crits, because yes, you can hit other triggers, but what is a draw gonna do for you as much as a crit can do for you? Of course, we still want to run heals, because heal guardians are very good, but you want to have a 12 crit deck, and because of that, I actually run these Dalf the Ghosties to exchange. Now, there may be a situation in the future where I might have to cut back on that and change it up a little bit, but right now, this is kind of currently what I'm doing. I also just I like this card. I just have a weird addiction for this card. It's very weird. I'm weird, but you know, I just exist like this. Anyway, going on to other grade 1s. I do run 2 Tommies currently. Probably gonna change this up. I do think that the Tommies are kind of necessary with the Heal Guardians right now. That also becomes an 18k booster, which, oh no, it becomes a 13k booster. It becomes a 13k booster, and it's just really nice behind Vanguard, behind your rears. Just makes everything more lethal, and this is the highest booster technically that we have. And Beatrice, technically, this is the highest booster, as it gets an additional 5k, and it's the same with Night Rose. So it is bigger in other decks than it is in this deck. You can't use this for anything else but really just the search, and you're only really searching for your Heal Guardians and your grade 3s. But you know, the upside is that you get the booster. I am running this at 2 for that reason. This is my experimental slot card right now. I may push this up, may push it down. Not really fully sure about the Tommies yet. I love Tommy the Ghosty brothers. I love the fact that they're a 13k attacker, all this other stuff, but I'm still kind of figuring out where I want this to be, how much I want to prioritize. If I were to prioritize these, I'd probably have to cut these back and start running the other Sentinels, but we'll see. Next, I run 3 Negerbone, you know, just free call whatever. You discard if you have 10 or more, you can call whatever from drop. Obviously, you know, you can call this, call whatever you need. You can just call from drop to the board. Usually it'll be like a Greed Shade or something, as it'll be a high attacker. You can call this. You can just set up your board whatever way you want and just kind of start rumbling with that. So that's that. And then I run 4 of the Sea Strolling Banshee. I think this card is probably best in this deck currently. Other decks, this is kind of like a hit or miss in my opinion. I've been testing it in Night Rose and Beatrice, and I see that this card tends to be too slow. But in a deck like this, it's actually not too bad. There are situations when you don't want to mill that fast. Maybe you don't want to just go into a big onslaught of milling, and this card just in the middle mills. It mills you 2 cards, and it has a Vanguard skill where you can just selectively mill something, and then it also can retire itself to draw yourself a card in case you do mill a trigger. The card is just a really good spot in this deck, I think, and I think it's just better. But there are situations where you may want to hyper mill, and that's actually what these cards are for. So you may see these a little bit earlier early and you may want to hyper mill. Maybe if you get this in time, you can bring out this and kind of do like a little hyper mill engine here now, but it's really rare. You don't want to mill to that degree. You can also change these ratios up. You can make this 4 and the other 2. I just like the fact that this as a Vanguard also works well, and then, you know, as a rear guard it works well. It kind of has 2 functions, but like I said, the card is in the spot where it's best in this deck and not really too many of the other decks, but it still works. It still works. Now let's talk about our triggers. Oh yeah, another reason, just to let you guys know, another reason why I run off the Ghosty is all of these you want in your drop. Every single one of these cards you want to see in your drop, but sometimes you want to greed shade for something, and you know what the best card to greed shade for? Bum, 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 this card right here. It helps you keep your triggers in your drop, but then also securing your perfect art to hand. That's actually another reason why I'm currently running off the Ghosty. Like I said, might be changed. Like this is very situational, and like you know, it's not always. It's just maybe because some decks you don't want to see perfect cards, in which case you will probably pick up one of these. But that's mainly why I'm also running them, just for that thing. I don't want to pick up my 30k Sentinel crit. I would much rather pick up the perfect guard in that situation. But there are some decks where you may need the perfect guard more, in which case, I mean, you may need perfect guard less, in which case you may want to pick up one of these. But this kind of gives you the option to get away with that. If you run the 30k Sentinels and say I run like other grade 1s in here, now anytime you greed shade, you will be forced to pick up a trigger. And that's actually why I run it like this. So 12 crit, 4 heal. I'm just going full lethality here. This is definition of lethality. I want to see my opponent die before they even get a chance to do anything. And early crits, this is good. Late game crits, this is good. Just overall seeing these crits is good. Obviously, the heal guardians we need. The heal guardians is kind of a new thing that's been added to V-Coin collection, but pretty much if you are on grade 2 and you do not ride to grade 3, at any given point you can pretty much use this card. I would tell you ride to grade 3, but you can pretty much give 10k to your Vanguard, or you can minus 2 crits to something that's attacking you, or you can put 10k to really anything. Oh yeah, choose your Vanguard. So your Vanguard gets a 10k, and then you can minus 2 crits on whatever. Really good overall card. It has a 15k shield on it on top of that, so early on, you know, what the funny thing about this card that's just really cool, by the way, some people are unaware of this yet. They haven't spent that much time with heal guardians. Here's a little thing you can do. Say you have 3 rear guards on the board, 2 rear guards and a Vanguard on the board, right? Opponent swings at a rear guard. You can guard with this card to the rear guard, but you can still activate the skill to your Vanguard. Just a little thing I thought I'd let you guys know you can do. So it's just a really fun little technique. But that's pretty much the deck. Honestly, there really isn't much to this deck. I'm gonna go ahead and kind of give you like a little example of kind of what you want to see with this deck, and then we'll probably just wrap it up there. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so ideally this is kind of what you want your setup to do, and I did forget about my starter here. I'm gonna put it back in. Don't forget your starter. I am using the Guiding Zombie just because nobody ever uses this card anymore as a starter, but there is the Guiding Zombie. Don't forget your quick shield, also very important. Here's just kind of like a very generic setup, like just a setup that you may want to have. You may want to call this out here just to have extra you know, boosters or whatever. If you can maybe bone for something. We do have like a bone in here, or you can cutlass. Say we have like 1 face down, you can bind a cutlass, put a cutlass out to the board, and then, you know, mill a card. It is a trigger, and then, you know, you could undo it. Now keep in mind, I did put just 7. I put 6 triggers in here. Now we just got a 7th one, so there's the triggers. So we got a 7th one, so we do have a 10k front right now to the board. Now you can kind of just start doing some pretty funky stuff here. So you can go ahead and swing with, if you were in this situation, you can go ahead and swing with pretty much one of your rears. So just one. So whichever one that, you know, you feel is less threatening currently, you can start here. He does have the extra 5k on him, so he is currently swinging for 1424 to your opponent's Vanguard. They do whatever. Then you start swinging with your Pinot Noir. This guy back here also has 5k since we have more than 5 in drop, and then you can counterblast, retire a unit. This is the Pinot Blanc skill that's coming in here. So you call her out like this, and here she is out. So this happens when you attack, so both of these skills activate pretty much at the same time. Then you can go ahead and use your Pinot Noir skill, Soul Blast a card out. Oh, I forgot to draw. We have to draw for this. So we do draw. We did get a trigger. And now you discard the top 2 cards. So discard 1, discard 2. We didn't get anything, so no triggers would activate. Then you would actually start swinging. And this, by the way, right here is 20, 30, 35 to your opponent's Vanguard. Both of your rear guard sides have some power here. And this side has some power here, so you can go ahead and, you know, declare to your opponent, do whatever. Then you do your drive check. We actually didn't hit anything, so by somehow we didn't hit anything. And then this is 35, and then you would proceed to just go into your attacks 15, 25, and then go on this side. This will be 17, 27, 32, and then your opponent does whatever. You can choose to activate her skill, mill 2 cards, and then oh look, we hit a trigger, cool, and then you can draw a card, and thus that pretty much ends your turn. Now what's really cool about this is you have to always keep track of your trigger counts. Essentially, if you're noticing that you're getting kind of close to your trigger count again, which is kind of what we have here, because we saw 1 and then we saw 2, and then we have the ones back here that I put. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 triggers. We are 1 away from getting to that condition of having an extra front. So on your opponent's turn, you can think about guarding with those triggers, you know, perfect guard those triggers, get them out of here, you know, do whatever. So that way, when you start your turn again, you know, take a damage or something, you know, all that stuff. But then when you start your turn again and you draw, you can go ahead, you know, ride your Pinot Noir. I've been forgetting to pick up my protect markers. Yeah, and then you can just do it all over again. And what's beautiful about this, so say you swing, you know, your opponent is still alive, you now have double interceptors here, you have your abilities live, these both guard like crazy, and your opponent can't attack them. So in case they have no way of retire, you can just instantly just guard with these and it just be okay. You can also go protect 2 in this situation and also, you know, add even more pressure from these rear guards. I want to go ahead and briefly talk about Protect 1 and Protect 2. You'll notice that I left out my girl over here, so I kind of want to talk to you guys about Protect 1, Protect 2. This is a matchup. This is a kind of deck where you can actually get away with going either or. You can go Protect 1 in case you really feel you need the perfect guards, but you can actually go Protect 2 as this girl cannot be attacked. So if you know that your opponent isn't retiring or doing anything weird with your board, you can actually go ahead and put that Protect 2 on the spot where you'll keep your block for the end of the turn, because not only does this add an extra 5k to your attacking rear guard on top of the front that you're getting, but she also will intercept for even larger. You want her to drop anyway, so you're going to be intercepting with her regardless, because you want her in drop. You want to see her in drop every single turn, right? So you can instantly just keep it here. If you have, say, like 6 triggers a deck, she is now 15, but plus this, she is a 25k interceptor. Say you have more, say if now this is a 35k interceptor. Say you have all your triggers in your drop zone for some whatever reason. Now she's 25 plus this, that makes her what, 35, 40 potentially. So this just gets really, really high, really fast, really easily. Just something to keep in mind. This is a really good tool to use. Your opponent can't hit this anyway, so they're not going to target it. They literally can't, and it's a 14k attacker on its own, and then plus the fronts that you'll be getting, this will get even bigger, even faster. So this is just another push play that you could do. You could force your opponent to have to guard a higher number than they normally would. And like I said, perfect interceptor, and it stays on the board no matter what, unless they choose it. Unless they choose it, then you can't do anything about that. But of course, against those matchups, you're going to be going Protect 1 anyway. But like I said, it's very situational. This deck does let you afford to have the option. You can go either or, as you will always have at least 1 on the board. If you're constantly using the skill, you will have 1. Of course, Protect 1 is never a bad option. We do have our 4 perfect guards, but it's not a bad thing to always have another one. You know, you may need the other one against certain matchups like Regalia or Vanguard restanding like Kagura, whatever. This is definitely a go-to, but just keep in mind against maybe some Excel matchups or some matchups where you don't want a perfect guard dropping 2 cards, you can just use this instead. All right, hi, so I'm back. I hope you guys enjoyed that little profile. Hope it helps you in your Pinot Noir deck building. Hope you had fun with this. Hope you enjoy the deck. Like I said, I'm not trying to say the deck is bad or anything like that. I just feel like if you're gonna go deep diving into Granblue, there are probably decks out there that will do a little bit more for you. Currently, in the current format, like I said, anything could change, meta can change, all that stuff, things could shift. Overall, still a fun deck, pretty cheap deck to build, as I mentioned earlier. But hope you guys enjoy it. Hope you guys try it out. Hope you guys have fun with it. I think it's a very fun deck. It's a very unique, very kind of brings you back to the old ages of what kind of Granblue is all about, being able to mill, call, retire, mill, call, retire, mill, big crit pressure, all this other stuff. It's very Granblue-esque, and that's what I love about it. So I hope you guys also out there enjoy it. Let me know in the comments below how you feel about this deck. Maybe there's something you like, and please feel free to tell me all that. Other than that, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and peace out now. Enjoy the little skeleton I created for y'all. Hope you guys like it. Enjoy whatever you're doing with the deck. I hope you have fun, but I'm gonna head out, so peace out. Das vidanya. See you guys next time.